Hello everybody. This is the launch of Real News, Real Action Newscast. We're going to have news, commentary, history, action strategies. I'm Jim Condit Jr. You've now broken through all the gatekeepers. There's a guy who was training people early in the world of the video on the internet named Jim Edwards. He doesn't have anything to do with this broadcast, but I learned how to do some video from his teaching DVDs and videos, and he said, don't brag, don't exaggerate, but if something's true, then claim it. And I'm going to suggest to you that right now, Real News, Real Action will be the most important video podcast on the internet. Not because we're going to do the most in-depth reports. A lot of these guys that do in-depth reports in what's called the alternative news media, which is the real news media, like the Corbett Report, Stefan Molyneux, Debbie Lassignon of Sane Progressive has done some excellent stuff on the shadow government and the computer vote fraud syndicate, and a ton of other people. I like to watch these folks. But what we're going to do is give you the missing ingredients. In fact, we almost called this video newscast Missing Ingredients, because we'll be giving you missing ingredients you won't hear anywhere else, some of them, and all of them together you certainly won't hear anywhere else. And in that sense, so you can read between the lines on the mainstream media news, on the alternative news broadcasts, we'll give you that background so you can fit pieces together better hopefully, and in a worldview kind of determine what's happening. Not that you're going to agree with every last position that I take or my worldview, but that's what we hope to help you do here. And we also will give you an action strategy, the only action strategy that can peacefully and constitutionally overthrow the shadow government, the deep state, and take back the United States of America. In this respect, look at those on the major media as the bad information magicians, the bad info magicians, and I'm one of the good info magicians who's going to pull back the curtain, show you their tricks, show you what they're not reporting, show you what you don't know about them. And then, of course, the action plan is critical if we're going to save the United States. Once you hear the action plan, I think you're going to be kind of mad that the freedom movement leadership has not been pounding this home for the last 30 years instead of just letter writing and going to rallies and shouting and going home, which neither one spooks or upsets or even makes slightly afraid the power structure behind both parties. We're going to give you a combination of information, again, that will be hard to see anywhere else. Now, now we'll be going into what is the deep state. Sean Hannity this year has made popular the term deep state, and that's a service he's done for America to make that term a household word. The first time he mentioned it, he said, and he played this a few weeks ago, the first time he mentioned the deep state, what he actually said, and he played it on his show, was the shadow government, the deep state. Now, I prefer the shadow government. The deep state gives the impression it's just some Obama holdovers or something like that. Deep state's much more than that. Goes back formally in this country to at least 1913, when the Federal Reserve was stupidly delegated, Congress was stupid to delegate to them the power to issue our money. So on this we'll be telling you exactly what constitutes that shadow government. We'll be covering the issue that I've been involved in since 1979, a lifetime ago, and since I was 26 years old in 1979, the computer vote fraud. In a way, this right now is the only issue facing America. And this is being made on August 15th, 2018. And the midterm elections are coming up after Trump was elected in 2016 as president. And this is really the only issue that counts in the United States. We got three big companies, which you may never have heard of, most Americans have never heard of, because the big five TV networks are in up to their neck in helping them pull this computer vote fraud on the United States for the last 30, 40 years in key elections. ES&S, Election Systems and Software, that's the big one, ES&S, HART, and then Dominion. These three companies are hired by 96% of our counties, and they step aside and let them run the elections on secret programs, and then a lot of times the local board of elections will destroy the ballot images, which is totally illegal, sometimes destroy the ballots. And so this Votescam computer vote fraud syndicate, computer election fraud syndicate, will be going into depth. For instance, I'll tell you about when I came face to face and had a 1-minute discussion with candidate Trump in 2016 in Marshalltown, Iowa, at Marshalltown High School. Handed him a piece of paper, basically emphasized you've got to protect yourself against computer vote fraud. Then you remember we were working with somebody else in his outer circle who luckily, by divine providence, noticed our websites on this subject, such as electionnightgatekeepers.com or openlettertodonaldtrump.com. And this person was not still in the Trump organization, but had been in the outer circles in past years. And on about 4 or 5 months later, on August 1st, 2016, Trump started to say in every speech, I'm afraid they're going to rig the election against me. October 26th, 2016, 14 days before the election, he tweeted out to 17 million people that about computer vote fraud. That at that time, the computers were switching the votes from Trump to Hillary, caught in 3 locations on that day. Hannity reported, and then Trump tweeted it out to 17 million people. We've been trying for 30 years to get some presidential candidate, some high microphone candidate, to bring up the vote fraud issue. Trump finally did it. And probably because he wanted to win, and he didn't want to lose. And Trump's not going to die, and nobody's going to die. He has a big ego. So we'll be going into all kinds of things on that. We could easily do a 2 or 3 hour show just on computer vote fraud, how we got to get rid of the computers in the first phase of the count, human beings counting paper ballots at the precinct before they leave the public site. Paper ballots without counting them before they leave the public site are worthless. Now we have paper ballots in Ohio in 80% of the country. We feed them into some ATM type of case, then you never see them again, and you can't get them in a timely manner. So the answer is getting rid of these 3 big companies and a few satellites of theirs, or smaller companies. Get the computer election vendors out, count the votes, paper ballots by hand at the precinct before the ballots leave the public precinct. Another thing we'll be covering that is absolutely essential for the United States is how, and don't fall asleep, I'm not going to talk about, if I said somebody's going to run down the street and we got $360 million in the lottery fund, everybody perk up. But this is more important. This is how we need to issue money in the technological age. Tucker Carlson, CNN, locally on WLW radio here in Cincinnati, Rocky Boyman, who's an NFL Super Bowl ring winner twice. They've all done shows, and a lot of others have done shows. What are we going to do? The computers and machines are taking a lot of the jobs humans used to do. The other thing is robots are coming. They're talking about driverless cars, which doesn't sound like a good idea to me. Robots are going to be making a lot of the food in McDonald's in the next few years, they're saying. So what are we going to do? And the left, the international bankers through their socialist wings are saying guaranteed income. Guaranteed income. And that's a bad idea for many reasons. It puts the government in arbitrary control of what is the government guaranteed income. But the answer is the dividend. Is expounded by a system called social credit that's been around for 100 years. That's a bad name in America. It sounds like you're going to say socialism. But we're calling it the national dividend. That's where how we issue money is scientifically figured in the open, not like the Fed where everything's done in secret. Ron Paul and others have been, mainly Ron Paul has been crusading to open that up. But we need a national monetary office, whatever it's called, that scientifically determines how much money should be issued in relation to the goods and services we have in circulation. Right now, we're about $7 trillion short in the people's pockets compared to the goods and services available. We're so rich, we need a dividend. Alaska's done this many years because of their surplus in oil, sent a check to each citizen. You may remember both Obama and Bush, W. Bush, did this once in their presidency. They put out a $300 check once in their presidency to stimulate the economy. Well, that was a little Band-Aid, but what's needed, believe it or not, is a dividend. It would be about $1,600 a month per an adult, and this is will not cause inflation if you have it about equal to the goods and services, and it is not socialism. Everyone spends their check the way they want, and it will go up and down each year depending on the GNP. But right now we have way less. The bankers, the international bankers at the Fed, IMF, Goldman Sachs, they're skimming off about $7 trillion off the top, and they're building their New World Order programs, their eventual surveillance state. They hope to have us much more under restrictions than we are now. Like the goal of the top elite is still a Trotskyite communism. Communism. We would all, and our children, grandchildren would all be in a commune with no rights like animals and no property, and they at the top will be the millionaires and billionaires running it. Communism is not a classless society, as we all heard in school. It is a two-tier society, those running it and those at the slave serf level. That's what they're shooting for. But by taking money out of the hands of these international bankers behind the Fed, IMF, and so forth, Goldman Sachs, which is a bank for businesses people don't know. It doesn't have local branches, but it does have the power to issue credit at key times, and that's a key way people read that know what's going on, whether the economy is going to go up or down. But instead of that, we issue the money scientifically in the open, and because we're so rich, we need the dividend. Now, even if that's, I'm a conservative my whole life. If you had to pick a label between conservative and liberal, before you turn off of that idea, give it a chance, because it is the most important idea to solve the money problems. President Trump, or whatever president or world leader would do this, would go down as one of the greatest leaders of all time in history, because it would finally bring issuing money into the technological age. Okay, when another action plan is the Precinct Project, which is we call it the Neighborhood Lighthouse Program, and it's the only way peacefully and constitutionally to overthrow the shadow government, deep state, behind the 5 TV networks and the news departments of those networks and the international banks and so much more, and to issue restore a constitutional freedom as envisioned by the Founding Fathers, and true freedom. So I won't go into how that works because it'd be too boring for this tape, but you basically have people organized at the local level in the precinct, which is about 10 streets around your house. You can look at a video on networkamerica.org, and I'll put that in the description. And there's a little 6-minute video there. There's another video up on YouTube I made in 2007 called The Strangest Political Secret. But you organize at the precinct level. That's where your county parties come from, your leadership of your Democrat and Republican Party. Nobody knows this. We're losing the country because we're not at that meeting every 2 years at your VFW hall or your convention center if it's a big city. We, the freedom fighters, are not at those meetings where the heads of these two parties are elected, and then they determine how the votes counted. They're the ones who have put in this illegal, unconstitutional, secret computer counts all over the country. The county leaderships can restore it to the way it should be, an open hand count. And also, in conjunction of that, would be the constitutional militia. Now, don't be afraid. Some of you say, don't use the word militia. It's in the Second Amendment that the Founding Fathers established a well-regulated militia. But I really didn't know what that exactly meant till I read Edwin Vieira, the great Dr. Edwin Vieira, the great constitutional scholar. He's got 8 articles on newswithviews.com about the militia. He has a book called Constitutional Homeland Security. I think he's got an ebook that you can buy for just a few dollars of 2,000 pages. I think it's called The Sword and the Purse. I think that's what it's called, or The Purse and the Sword. Dr. Edwin Vieira, Vieira. One of the top constitutional scholars in the country, if not the best. And so, as the precinct is organized from precinct to precinct, county to county, we got 3,000 counties, we got about 250,000 precincts, 3,141 counties, 50 states. So you organize that way, and you then you can then constitute the militia as the founding fathers saw, which was foresaw and established, which was every able-bodied man between 18 and 45. You could let women join now too if they wanted to, and it could be 18 to 65 now that people are living longer. And of course, the main reason they established that was to guard against an overweening federal government. And at each county, the militia people would come together once the legislation was passed and elect their county leader. Then the county leaders would elect the state leader, and this would be a counterbalance to both overreaching governors and the overreaching federal government. So the Precinct Project and the militia, properly understood, which is in the Constitution, go hand in hand. Okay. Another thing that needs to be established is by a president is the false flag investigating investigative unit, or whatever you want to call it. This would be a unit of the government to go and at any time there's one of these shootings or crises and see if it's really was done by some deranged individual or hostile terrorist, or if it was done by the dark side of our intelligence agencies, and the dark, in conjunction often with the dark side of the Mossad, Israel's intelligence agencies. 9/11 was probably the biggest false flag of all time. And from that, once that was accomplished, it was blamed on the Muslims, but it was actually done by the organized Jewish network, which is a criminal network at the top, along with elements of our Anglo secret society, Bilderberger, Council on Foreign Relations, the group the Bushes and the Clintons represent. Those two cooperated to do 9/11, and that's where they started endless wars in the Middle East. They use that as an excuse for 15 years in of what they said right on the day of 9/11, Henry Kissinger's assistant, Lawrence Eagleburger, it came on before they even identified Osama bin Laden as who supposedly did it. He said, Americans have to realize we're going to be at war for 50 years in the Middle East, and at home we're going to have to give up our freedom for security. So we've already been at war for 15 years in the Middle East. And they also and then the surveillance state, the spy state, and the police state, they started to try to erect that with the excuse of terrorism everywhere. The war on terror is the war on you and me primarily. And these Las Vegas, looks like Sandy Hook. This is why they suspended Alex Jones, because he put out very good summaries of what Professor Jim Fetzers and others did. I'm sorry to say, I know I have to risk losing people. If you look into Sandy Hook, something is wrong. Something is wrong there. So all these false flags are used to try to push us into gun control or whatever. And the president needs to have his unit, and the other bad guys in government need to know there's going to be a unit that can go anywhere to investigate if these things are real or if they're false flags. Also, President Trump or somebody has to make known to the American people that there's a project in modern Israel called Greater Israel, where they want to expand the borders into Iraq and Lebanon and I think Egypt. You can look it up, but it's a big swath of land. What is mentioned in the Old Testament, which is over, but that's another story. That's what was already granted and lost. But if that continues to go forward under the Likud party and Netanyahu, we're going to have endless war in the Middle East, and that's why Israel's never declared its borders, because they're planning to expand those borders. And we have to side with former Prime Minister Shimon Peres, I believe it was, who died recently, who said, "Look, we have enough land." He was against expansion. Jill Stein, who was the Green Party candidate in 2016 for president, she kind of took this position too on national TV, that the persecution of the Palestinians and all this aggressiveness has to stop. So we have to side with the Jewish leaders who are against Greater Israel and this permanent expansion, which most Americans never heard of. This is the type of thing we'll cover. At HitlerDVD.com, I have the most anti-Hitler video on the web. It's been banned in 11 countries in the European Union and the Mideast by a French judge a few months after a fellow in the Netherlands put it up on his YouTube channel because of that video He got his YouTube channel banned in those 11 countries: Germany, Israel, France, and about 7 other countries. That's in a way my greatest achievement info-wise. And you can see the information on that at hitlerdv.com. You can see the video for free. It's the 3-hour one I did with Christopher John Bjerknes in 2007. And on one of the tabs is the story and a lot of the comments that were on the video before they restricted our video, even in the United States, and took all the comments down. We got some of the best comments up there. They admitted to 100,000 views since 2007 when they took it down into, as far as they have warnings on it, like this is a dangerous video, like they do with so many now. So anyway. That body of information you will have a very hard time finding, and I'm sorry to say a lot of the people who are onto the shadow government, they draw the wrong conclusion that if the shadow government, which is largely powered by the organized Jewish lobby, and again, that's not all Jews, just so we're clear, it's just a very small fraction of Jews in the world at the top, cooperating with the Anglo secret societies that the Bushes and Clintons represent. If that network's bad, they think, well, Hitler must have been good. Wrong. The international bankers funded 4 super criminals: Hitler, and pushed them: Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill, and 50 million basically white Europeans and Americans lie dead on the field of battle. There were others, of course, but in the field of battle and in other ways after World War II. Did you ever notice that Hitler's main job, among other jobs, though, was to round up the Jews in Europe and get as many of them as possible down to Palestine? Did you ever notice that Israel was founded 3 years after World War II, first major act of the United Nations? Did you ever notice that? And Hitler, as soon as he got in power, was trying to give the Jews incentives to go down to Palestine, working with the Zionists, and then he eventually started rounding them up, putting them in concentration camps, and even that, though, was not as it appears to be. So that DVD, all the aspects are what the official Hollywood version, we correct that in this Hitler DVD. Although I've been called on CNN recently, I was attacked for 2 minutes on CNN over another matter they've dragged me into. And they attacked me by name for 2 minutes and said I was a Holocaust denier. I'm not a Holocaust denier, but to paraphrase another person on conspiracy theory, I'm not a Holocaust denier, I'm a Holocaust analyst. And what happened when the international Jewish bankers were paying the Nazis, supporting them to round up the little everyday Jews to try to, in one way or the other, eventually get them down to Palestine in anticipation of the takeover that came in 1948. That's a Holocaust. When in the Old Testament, you'd sacrifice your best lamb, that, the owner of the farm or whatever, that would be the Holocaust to God. So the international Jewish bankers sacrificed a lot of their everyday people to get this done and get Israel founded. Another body of information you're going to have a tough time finding anywhere else, almost anywhere else. We got whitesmoke1958.com. That's whitesmoke1958.com. All these will be in the description. And whitesmoke1958.com, you have the takeover of the Vatican at the spoiled conclave of 1958. The takeover of the Vatican by the same deep state shadow government that's taken over the United States government in many ways, and especially almost completely under Daddy Bush, Clinton, Obama, and W. Bush and Obama. That was almost complete. They were moving almost without any opposition for those years. We'll cover subjects you won't hear anywhere else, like, is China today communist or capitalist? Wait till you hear how China became communist, but that was a prelude to making it the largest limited corporation in history for the international bankers and their friends in the United States. Who owns the media? When Trump says the big media, the fake media, is an enemy of the people, good grief, he's not even going far enough. They're commit treason every cycle against the people. We'll be talking about the orchestrated invasion of Europe and the United States by third world peoples orchestrated by these same international bankers. Now, that's not anything against the third world peoples, because I believe, just for the record, that's another way I'm smeared on the internet, is that I am a racist, or I am white supremacist. I believe every individual is created by God. Every individual soul is of equal value in God's eyes, and I believe we all are of the same human family, and we should, like different parts of a symphony, the races and the classes and the countries should be making beautiful music together. That's the way it should be. But on the other hand, to have a reasonable pride in your heritage, in your history, every people, black, white, Oriental, Hispanic, every people has a right to have a reasonable pride in their heritage, and not to have their culture and their countries destroyed by what's happening in Europe, in the United States, where the international bankers are trying to make white people of European descent a minority everywhere. And of course, the white people have cooperated mightily in the last 50 years or so by using birth control to a scandalous extent that has demographic. Pat Buchanan's book, The Death of the West, we're looking at demographic disaster in only one and a half generations. I have to mention, even though this may alienate a lot of people, you have to know that I started in the Right to Life movement, pro-life movement, in 1973, and we now have abortions up to 9 months in every state of the United States. People don't believe that, but under certain, you just got to find a doctor who says, oh, the woman has health reasons. There's a 1,000 or 2 abortions done every year in the United States of 6 to 9 month old babies, where I guess the mother's on drugs or something, and they say they're going to pay her a lot, and they convince her, and they want these babies to do ghoulish experimentation, try to crack the secret of life. But by the time we have most of the people, almost everybody in the Democratic Party and many other people, defending abortion up to the 9th month, where they go in and cut the baby's arms and legs off, and so the partial birth abortion, they pull the baby out in the 9th month and put a screwdriver type thing through the baby's back of the skull, suck the brains out, and then send the baby off for experimentation. This is why Planned Parenthood got caught by Project Veritas selling body parts. That's true. That's what they're doing. What could be more ghoulish, more diabolical? And then Obama helped to keep the Illinois law. Is a nurse named Jill Stanek went up there in 2006 or 7 trying to get a law passed in Illinois that if the baby survived the abortion, if they did it by another method other than cutting it up, that the doctor had to try, and the nurses had to try to save the baby's life. In Illinois, did not pass that. So as Ann Coulter said, even if the baby survives the abortion, then the doctor can run down the hall and catch it and kill it while it's trying to run away. She kind of made the point that way. But America will not be blessed while we have a legalized killing of unborn children. That is part of, haven't talked about that a lot in recent years, because the Right to Life movement politically throws the game and doesn't really try to, has the dumbest strategies ever, and we'll go into the NRA and all the conservative groups who have horrible political strategies. The ladies that counsel women and help them save their babies and get the help to give it up for adoption or keep it themselves, they're saints. But the political strategists, Right to Life, NRA, Tea Party, morons. We'll get into that too in my videos. Now, my background philosophy, if people want to know that, and I think everyone should know everyone's background philosophy if they're going to think of listening to them a lot or supporting them. That is in a paper that a web page you can link to, get to through the description. It's Father Dennis Fahey, and I think it's called Father Fahey's Best Introductions or something like that. And we'll give you the link down there, and it's about 8 or 9 pages, and that would give you my worldview. So anyone is welcome to watch for free. I've written stuff on the internet since 1998 or so, 2000. In the year 2000, January 10th, we started our Network America eWire, which will be at the end of the show that you can subscribe to. And I put a lot of videos up, but this is our first formal broadcast of real news, real action. And you can watch for free. You're always welcome to watch for free. But we will be seeking, and if this offends people, I guess they're not going to watch me, we will be seeking $3,000 or so patrons a month or supporters a month, either through Patreon patreon.com, patreon.com, or through our own, and that's be at the end too, how you get to us there, or through our own website, realnewsrealaction.com, because we need to hire some full-time people if we're going to make this action plan work, these action plans that are so necessary. Be easier if a president like President Trump told people about it, which we're going to be advocating happen, make it part of his 2020 campaign, then it would happen like that. But if not, we need, I don't need money. Believe it or not, well, you can probably believe it. Looking at me, it's hard for me to believe. I'm 65, so I'm about to start Social Security. I don't need any money, but I need to be able to hire a social media person, my best associate who helped to bring about this set, eyeballing it from the West Coast. Because I was just going to have a blank wall that would look like amateur hour. So, and my best associate, she volunteered hundreds of thousands of dollars of work in the last few years for free, and she needs. She's a homeschooled mother. She needs an income so she doesn't have to do other things. She should be working full time to fight for your freedom, and we also need someone to be at Network America to talk to people, to help organize people on how to run for precinct and to get the constitutional militia started again and have a force that can overthrow the deep state, fix the voting, fix the money, fix all the laws that should not be there and that the Congress has passed over the last 50 years or so. And so hopefully we'll inspire, 300, 400, and eventually 3,000 people to help us do that. And so we can report to you each day how that's going, and we'll be doing action as well as just giving information. The only reason, you're always welcome to watch for free. If you don't have the money, pray that we reach the people that do, because not everyone has the money. I've been there many times in my life myself. But, the only reason to support our broadcast here and our program is the action. I mean, you're not going to hear a lot of this information anywhere else. We'll give you a good mental background to read the news and listen to everybody else. But the only reason to financially support is the action program, so we can get just a few people to fight against this deep state. And again, if President Trump was called for the precinct system, people to get into the precincts, then it could happen like that in a few months. So anyway, that is now one other thing I'll say here. I'm going to be making an appeal to billionaires and multimillionaires. If you're out there, and I've spent 40 years getting this action program together, finding out what works, and so on and so forth. If you're worth, from inheritance or you're a business genius, $50 to $1 million to $1 billion, consider giving $1 or $2 million to our program so we can make it work. I'm not shy to ask for that. If the deep state takes over and brings Trotskyite communism to this country and ever gets gun control, your money's not going to be worth anything. Your kids and grandkids, the money won't be worth anything. So I'm not asking anybody to go to the poorhouse, but if you can have that kind of money and look at our program and get in touch with us, and you see, okay, this is what needs to be done. I don't know why most people don't see that in the freedom movement. Then consider doing that, because we need to fight right now. The deep state is coming, and had Hillary Clinton been put in, which they could have easily done, which we'll go into in some of our podcasts. I don't know what would be happening. So we also don't know what's going to happen to the internet. They've been shutting down Alex Jones, kicking Gavin McInnes off of, who's in the Mark Levin network, off of Twitter, and Stefan Molyneux almost got terminated. He's got 887,000 followers. He almost got terminated. I saw a video he did the other day. Almost ruined 12 years of his work, 1,400 videos, and he does 2-hour videos. Incredible. But so we don't know what's going to happen. Patreon could be shut down. If you can't find us anywhere, go to realnewsrealaction.com and we'll tell you where to go. We're archiving all our videos in our own hard drives and in the cloud in case YouTube takes us down. And we will tell you how to get in charge with YouTube there, in touch with our YouTube channel at the last, in the description, and also in the last billboard, or whatever you want to call it, at the end of this video, which is coming soon. Lastly, the other action program that I've been pioneering all alone is the reasonable access law. When you're a federal candidate, like a congressional candidate, like I am right now for the 2018 election, in the last 60 days before the election, They have to give you the lowest price they charge any other time of year, and they have to put your commercial on. You can say anything, any message, and they have to put it on. They cannot censor it. And believe me, over the years, WLW and WKRC, which are the big talk stations around here, don't like it. I put ads on right in the middle of Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Drive Time, which reaches on WLW 150 to 300,000 people driving to and from work. I give them a new message they probably never heard in websites, so people that haven't woken up yet, that they need to look behind the curtain of the mainstream news, they hear this for the first time, and nobody can stop it. This should be happening in all 100 major media markets in the United States, and that's another reason to support us. The more money I have to put on radio ads in October of this year, let's say this is being made in August, then we can really make an impact in the 10 million people radius of Cincinnati, Ohio, Indianapolis, Ohio, Kentucky, and so forth. And we could even help get this done in other places as well if we had enough money. Again, we're not asking for something unreasonable. If you think it's worthwhile supporting us, $10. If you can't afford it, you're just as welcome as anybody else. But it's not an unrealistic program to say 3,000 freedom fighters in the USA could afford $10 or $5 or $15, whatever, dollars a month to support the program if they saw it was going to add up to something. A lot of times they don't think it's going to add up to anything. So, okay. It's 1776, stealing this from somebody I heard years ago, 1776 all over again, but this time you were there. Father Gruner was a friend of mine, Father Nicholas Gruner, who ran the Fatima Crusade up in Canada. And I was up there helping him in '94, and we were sitting around after the one night eating dinner with 4 or 5 guys, and we were saying, boy, this is going bad. Boy, that doesn't look good. Things are going on the wrong direction here. Clinton was president then, of course. And it's more than Clinton, of course. It's the whole shadow government behind most of these guys. And, what's going to happen? And Father Gruner said, I'll do my best imitation of him that I could do. He's passed away now, for those of you that knew him. He said, if we work as hard as we can and we pray as hard as we can, then God will do the rest. And I believe that, and I hope you will too. In Lord of the Rings, at one point after they left the Shire, which was the idyllic place the hobbits lived in, Lord of the Rings myth by J.R.R. Tolkien, who was kind of a prophet with a small p, because the Lord of the Rings is about our times, and we're the hobbits, and the hobbits must keep moving. And then the hobbits got the aid they needed when they needed it. But one point, Frodo, the idea is they got to destroy the ring at the Mount Doom. They got to destroy the ring. And the ring symbolizes evil and evil power, maybe evil technology, and it consumes everybody that has it. And now they're in terrible trouble, and they're sitting there in a cave, and Frodo says to the wizard Gandalf, who's kind of the mythical link between heaven and earth in a mild way, and Frodo says, because they're in terrible trouble, he says, I wish none of this had ever happened. I wish the ring had never come to me. And Gandalf says to him, so do all men who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. So this is Jim Condit Jr. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with a lot of short podcasts in a row, hopefully 4 or 5 a week or more even. But check in and sign up so that you get notified on YouTube when we put out a new video cast, the new Real News, Real Action newscast. Thank you.